Welcome to Space Unity, a space scene construction kit that I've put together for Unity 3D. This is the first video in a series of tutorials on how you can use Space Unity to create custom and unique space scenes for your Unity game. What you see right now is real footage captured from within the Unity editor running in full screen. The space scenes are not skyboxes that you would traditionally use, but instead assembled from meshes and textures from a large library included within Space Unity. Okay, on to the exciting stuff then. What I've done now is I've just opened up the Space Unity package, and it'll just give you a brief. I'll give you a brief overview of how it looks and how everything's constructed. I'm quite excited about this because I've been spending so many years in the past, or so many months anyway, during the past couple of years to create static space boxes that I've made available in the Unity Asset Store, and they've always been static and very limited, and they'll look the same in every game that uses them. So I'm quite excited to come up with this idea to create dynamic scenes for you instead that you can use. And instead of a space box that you just render on a camera, you see this sphere here. And as I rotate it, you'll see that it's got a lot of content inside of it. You've got nebulas, galaxies, and stars, and so forth. And I'll give you a quick, if I just press on play here, let's have a look. I'll maximize it on my screen, and you can see now that it's packed full of content. You've got a fiery star, a local star there that throws some prominence and cascades. You've got distant nebulas and stars, galaxies, and additional stuff that you actually get with it as well is this asteroid field, which is not part of the background, but it's either an endless or a local asteroid field that will render objects that you can interact with. And as you can see, also you've got little space particles and space dust. Again, that's not part of the background. But it's stuff that you get with the package anyway, that you can just add to your game and customize as you wish. And you also get the spaceship prefab with the particle effects and sounds and control systems and camera chases and you name it. What you see basically is what you get. I don't have anything in here that you don't get when you get this package. Mind though, you might not get the exact space scenes that I've got because they're randomly generated, but in terms of content, you get everything. I want to briefly go through, this is what, in my hierarchy, this is what it looks like. I've got a main camera, and that runs two prefabs that are available in the project, and it's the space fog for the fog effect and the space particles, but we'll go through that a lot more in detail later on. What I want to focus on right now is the space scene that's created. And you can see as I select different elements within this space scene, you'll see that they light up, and they're actually hemispheres that are mapped with single textures instead. And this is how you can create these dynamic scenes instead, because basically you can combine this with any type of textures and colors and rotations. And as you can see, I can just rotate these as I wish, or I can swap them out to different textures if I want manually, but luckily enough there's an editor script that does basically all of this for you. And also I'll just show briefly, if I open up the window, you get a space scene construction kit window. If I click on that and just create a space scene prefab, you'll see how easy this is. Bam! It's created a random universe now based on the different settings that I've got, and by default it'll select any type of star backgrounds, any type of nebulous, and it'll have a 16 count of nebulas. You can see that it's created 16 of them here. All colors go, different styles. The complexity is sort of in between. You get both complex and non-complex nebulas. And you can also customize stuff like texture count. If you want to save memory, you can use very low count, and it'll use fewer textures, but combine them in different rotations and positions. You've also got galaxies, and you can see that it's created a couple of galaxies in here, which you can also filter if you want. And if you want them to become a light source, you can do that. You've got planets, and by default it'll only create one planet in the scene, and you can see that one there. It's right there. So basically, this is a sphere that is automatically created every time you click on Create Space Scene Prefab, and you can customize these settings to get either dark sections of the universe that you want, or maybe very lush and colorful ones. You can just fiddle around with these settings and get them just the way you want, and even if you want to tweak a few things afterwards, you can do that by just clicking on the different objects in the space scenes and modifying them. In the demo scene, I've also got the spaceship prefab. Won't maximize that. You can use if you want yourself as well, or you just have your own spaceships. You probably want to use your own stuff, but you're welcome to use this one if you want. So yeah, this is I'm quite just flying around here now for no apparent reason. Apparently, let's switch that one off. The sphere that is created is it's not rendered as part of your interactable world. It's right here now, but you can move it out of sight if you want. If I select this space scene, just move it out, it'll still be available here in your game. So it's not, you can move it out of sight while you work on your actual game stuff, so it'll only keep your interactable objects in view here. But for now, let's move it back, because it does affect the light source a little bit, so you want to move it back when you're done. But again, you can just move it out of sight and keep testing it to make sure that it doesn't confuse you with your object, or you can hide it as well temporarily. And so the main camera that I've got is basically only rendering the spaceship itself, and it's got no background here. And there are a few settings that are important, and they come pre-configured in this package. And there are a few things like you have to change from skybox in clear flags of the camera to depth only, because we're using this camera instead, the space camera, to render this entire sphere, and it's actually excluded from the main camera then. And this is why you can create this static look and just render it as a background instead. Let's have a look. We've got a few things that I'll go through in more detail in future videos about, you know, what's important with the depth and rendering path and so forth. But for now, just have to accept the fact that it's a rendered background. Okay, what else should I show now? Well, I can go through a little bit about the structure in the project folder. And this window, obviously, it doesn't magically come up with... Well, it does actually magically come up in a way, but it's we've got to pick these things from somewhere, and the nebulas and planets and all the textures and stuff. So within this package, you get a whole bunch of different materials. You get meshes, prefabs that are pre-made objects for the space scenes that this editor script will dive into and pick out for you. You've also got a bunch of scripts for the asteroid fields and planets and moons and space particles, and some custom shaders for the planet rings and the planets that are illuminated. You've got city lights on space on the dark side of planets. You've got some planets actually have maps of cities of them, Earth included, for example. And you've also got some self-illuminated planets with glowing lava and so forth. And a whole bunch of textures. We've got asteroid textures. Oops, let's bring this one up again. Different flares, bunch of galaxies, and these are 1024 by 1024 textures. And you've got local star textures, which are different type of particle effects that are rendered for the cascades. Some moon textures, and a whole bunch of nebula textures, and they come in 1024 by 1024 in the resolution, so you can always reduce that in your game to keep it smaller, but you'll find that a combination of 1024s will look really nice on the screen. And so a whole bunch of nebula textures. You've got some more a bunch of planet textures. They all planets come with a diffuse map and a bump map, and they're all 1496 by 1496, so these are huge textures. You probably want to reduce that in your games to 1024 because they take up a lot of space on the disk, but the option is there if you want to use such high resolutions. So at minimum, all planets have a diffuse and a bump map, and some will also have illumination maps, which are which areas of the planet should be automatically lit even if there are no light source. You've also got some let's see, lights here, which it's really faint now so you can't see it, but these are the night lights that light up when there's when you're looking at the shaded area of the planet. So a whole bunch of textures you've got in there, and don't let this put you off or scare you, because you don't really have to dive into these if you don't really want to. It's just there for the editor script to select from. So if I want to go to stars and just say I want high star count with a black background, I want fewer nebulous, and we only want very dark and dark nebulous. We want a little bit less complexity maybe. We want 2 galaxies, we want 1 planet, which is, we want that one to be very close, and the climate, let's say that we need an Earth-like planet for this part of the game, and a local star, we want orange and large local stars. So local stars basically like our sun or something like that, which is close in view for your, that will actually cast a light as well if you are choosing intensity and whether you should have a light flare or not. So let's create that one. See, and it'll give you a warning as well if you've already got a space scene that you're going to overwrite a few things. So yes, and let's have a look at what this one looks like. I'm always excited to press play every time I create one. Oh, here we go. So it's a dark universe with a black background. You got a Earth-like planet with some night lights there, and the star is actually you'll find that sometimes the star might end up in a obscure location and you might want to see it, so in this case we'll just pick it, relocate it a little bit. Maybe we want to even see if we can get it into our view here. Let's have a look. Ooh, there we go. It's going to show up in front of us now. There's the star. And also you can obviously disable, I've enabled the asteroid field here in this view. We'll disable the asteroids, and we can also disable this particle effects, the space fog and the space particles, just to have a look at what the deep space scene. This is the rendered background only now, so no interactable or close proximity stuff going on here. This is just what you would have instead of the skybox. Finally, before I tend to always talk about it too much, so instead of going into depth now, I'm gonna just let you know as well that you can on the space camera that is rendered, you can actually set a relative speed on it. So if you were to want to move around slightly in the background, you can do. The star is still really far away, but you'll probably see that the planet now, if we can bring that one in view, that you can actually move around in this space scene as well. But it won't have any boundary checking or collision checking, so you'd end up going through the planets, and you probably don't want to move this fast anyway, because it's unrealistic to fly that fast probably. Okay, let's see if there's anything else I should mention in this introduction. It is an introduction after all, so let's just leave it at this for now, and just enjoy the rest of the tutorials and the videos, and see how it all works and how you can use it for your game. So thanks for tuning in for the introduction, and see you in the next video.